Good morning, Nigeria, and we are still basking in the euphoria of independence anniversary. Yesterday, 1st of October, Nigeria marked 62 independence anniversary, and it was a beautiful celebration, I would say. Yesterday was a beautiful sight to behold at the Eagle Square, as with all the colorful parade and the pomp that greeted independence celebration. You remember that they started off with the president's speech, and he said a whole lot of things, probably because it was going to be, or it is actually, his last independence anniversary before he leaves office. Talked about the resilience of Nigerians even in the face of the downturn challenges. It was a very beautiful one, and it's been raining since this morning. We can say it is a blessing. That is a blessing from the Almighty to bless the independence anniversary. This is Weekend Deal on the network service of the NTA. I'm Shikeola Ipanaye.
And like Shike earlier informed you, today we will continue in our reflection. 62 years of independence, of course, we have come a long way, and nobody ever said it was going to be easy. Definitely we were bound to go through some challenges, but the good thing is we are still together, fighting it through together, which is very, very important. But right now, let's quickly join Francis Ogbe for the background report, and after that we still have more for you, so please stay with us.
As a country, we have come a long way in years and strength, and it will not be too much to celebrate the little wins and victories as we mark our 62nd independence anniversary. But one wonders, what happened to Nigeria on our journey to nationhood? The Asian tigers like Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan and South Korea that Nigeria started with have left us behind in terms of economic growth, strengthened by export and rapid urbanization, which enabled those economies to join ranks of the world's richest nations. Where did we get it wrong?
I would say so far, so good. There are countries who have gotten their independence and they have broken into pieces. Nigeria is still intact. Despite the challenges we have had, despite the early challenges like the civil war, the coups and counter-coups, Nigeria is still one. From the angle of democracy, Nigeria, since the return of democracy in 1999, we are now in our 23rd year, under uninterrupted democratic rule.
If you take Singapore as a case in point, for instance, by 1971, when Yusuf Ishaq, the president that came on board then, discovered that the strongest strength of Singapore was their agriculture. Harnessed all the agricultural opportunities in Singapore, and also invited Nigeria, bought palm fruits from Nigeria, invested in Singapore. They have been consistent economic plans, which every successive president have had to take cue from. So we missed everything from 1966, when the military came shortly, and then from then we have been having all manner of incursion. And so we were left behind. Today, Singapore, Taiwan, and some of these Asia Tiger, they are some of the countries that the world, the big world players are looking up to as those to take over from them.
Anniversary like this affords us the opportunity to rethink and support our own. For Made in Nigeria, for instance, is not just about physical products, but everything related to Nigeria in terms of dressing, arts, culture, and education.
At that time, the universities in Nigeria were few, only very few people had access to education. So you see, at that time, government can feed the students. Government, when they come out, when students graduate from the university, work is already waiting for them because there were actually the workforce then was so small, and there was demand. Now that the population has increased, government itself cannot even fund education.
As at the time we got independence, some African countries, citizens of other African countries, trooped to Nigeria to acquire education in our country. So much so that we are earning revenue from their involvement in our educational system. Indians, Ghanaians, and so on were teachers and lecturers in our institution. As low as primary schools, there were Indians who were teaching mathematics, teaching all economics, all courses in secondary schools, even in primary schools. Today, where are they? Today, where are we? We go to those countries. We go to Ghana. We go to Zimbabwe. We go to Kenya. We go to India just to acquire what they had gotten from us.
Another area that calls for consideration is the transport sector. How has the nation fared thus far?
We have our rail system, revived, even though at a particular point it went down. Now we have rail transportation coming up. At least Abuja, Kaduna, they are operating, even though it's now suspended due to this security challenges. We have Lagos, Ibadan. There are also new corridors, rail corridors, that are being constructed now, like the Kano, Daura, Katsina, Maradi rail corridor.
Nigeria's journey to nationhood has been dotted with incessant ethno-nationalist agitations, which have often threatened the peace and tranquility of the Nigerian state.
We are using the differences to bring ourselves down. We should not do that, because almost all the countries of the world, you hardly find a particular country that is not multi-ethnic or multi-tribal. Politics is one thing that is responsible for dividing people, because everybody wants to have advantage, wants support, and the easiest way to get that is to exploit the religious differences, ethnic differences, and so on.
Notwithstanding the challenges confronting the nation, there is a clarion call for all and sundry to join hands towards making Nigeria a force to be reckoned with in the Committee of Nations.
The Nigeria of my dream is a Nigeria as a country that will be free from corruption. Nigeria of my dream is a Nigeria where, like we used to do in those days, I can walk freely from one community to the other without fearing that I'll be attacked. The Nigeria of my dream, a country where our economic prosperity will be harnessed for the betterment of other generations.
Once we are able, politicians are able to look at politics, to view politics as a service, every other thing is incidental, then I think we'll have a better Nigeria.
Our focus on Weekend Deal today will be on 62 years of Nigeria's independence, the journey so far.
62 years of independence anniversary, the journey so far, and the clarion call is on everyone to put hands together to put Nigeria where it should be among the Committee of Nations. No doubt we've had some wins, but we still have a very long way to go in achieving our goals as a nation. Now we'll quickly reflect on education sector. We keep saying the good old days of sound education system in Nigeria. Let's have it.
When the colonial rule in Nigeria ended in 1960, they left behind some essential legacies, including her system of education. However, some analysts say Nigeria's independence ushered in new opportunities for the country to develop a system of education that will aid her quest for sustainable development. The reality today is not a reflection of the anticipated vision and progress. Some have argued that the challenge of education in Nigeria started with the takeover of schools in April 1972. 1975 saw the introduction of universal primary education, which was not well prepared for, as well as provided for. Consequently, this led to the provision of makeshift buildings, half-baked teachers, and inadequate resources to administer the education sector. With the explosion in the population of the country, the number of schools at all levels also increased, especially with the proliferation of private schools, which was not the trend shortly after independence.
Well, the carrying capacity that you have been created as a result of increase of the numbers. So this has contributed, understandably, perhaps in not being able to maintain the standards that might have been at independence or immediately post-independence.
It is fair to say that many public office holders today are products of public schools, but it is observed many now prefer private schools to educate their wards. The teaching profession is now an all-comers affair, and one wonders if school inspectors are alive to their primary responsibilities.
We are told of a number of cases where corrupt practices came into being, where they leak out information ahead of their visit, so that the cleanest environment in a school are likely to be the days that the inspectors, somebody had leaked out to them that they are coming. Yes, that's it. And just like you hear of very unfortunate at its where, in the case of tertiary institutions, they say, well, that some institutions, people go to borrow facilities from one department to another. If the accreditation is in a particular department or faculty, if some facilities from across the other building, they can get them so that they meet the requirement. After that, they return them. In fact, some even outside that institution. They could go to a hospital to go and bring some things in the College of Medicine. You can imagine. So we just hope that those kind of malpractices do not remain part of us.
It is a well-known fact that education is the hub of a nation's development and the foundation upon which all other sectors are built. But is education given the pride of place in the scheme of things in the country? Is enough budgetary allocation made for it annually across all tiers of government?
Mr. President last year, or was it late last year, at the World Summit on Education, had promised, and it reflected in this year's budget, yes, of increasing by 50% the education budget. The idea is to move education budget to minimum of 15%. That will be the highest ever in this country. But ultimately, if we're able to hit up to 15%, that will be nearly double of what had obtained as at last year when Mr. President made that commitment at the Global Summit on Education in London. So that will go a long way of reducing the challenge of funding, because I can tell you most of the issues of strike action by both academic and non-academic have associated with inadequate funding.
The quality of a nation's education reflects on all aspects of her national life. So, it wasn't a surprise as some Nigerians made global impact in the literary world. Some of the world's most respected authors from Nigeria include Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Elechi Amadi, Ola Rotimi, Cyprian Ekwenze, Ben Okri, Buchi Emecheta, and Florence Wakpa, who is often referred to as the mother of modern African literature. However, today some have argued that Nigeria's space in the literary world is shrinking as there are fewer Nigerians making a global impact.
This generation now, people would rather be tempering with social media priorities, some of those kind of tendencies, and at some point they don't even realize that we still have very brilliant Nigerians that are, believe me, as good as the Wole Soyinkas and this thing, but the circumstances does not organize to make them be appreciated. We still have them, and believe me, go out there. If you went out on medical tourism go outside the world, anywhere across Europe, Asia, I mean, whatever. You find in those places you go to, some of the best of those in the laboratories, in the research centers, in the clinical, if you do medicine, and Nigerians.
Another key challenge in the education sector is the incessant industrial action. Presently, about 2.5 million students are seated at home due to the ASU strike. Indeed, the need for collaboration among all stakeholders to address the salient issues confronting educational sector cannot be overemphasized, knowing fully that education is the foundation for any meaningful growth and development in a nation.
Well, there you have it. Definitely, Shike. Whenever you want to establish that, sustainable development, wherever, you find yourself, education certainly must give you that foundation. So you have to do whatever you can to make that foundation very solid. Up to now, we're still talking about the strike in Nigeria, and then effort are ongoing to ensuring that this is resolved, but it calls for sacrifice from all quarters
For the both parties
Yeah.
involved. Now, that is the federal government and, of course, us.
Well, we have some messages here. This one says, Nigeria at 62. Let's use this occasion to pray for peace, unity, and development, and also think of what we can do for the country. Happy 62nd anniversary to you all. This one is coming from Bashir Opalua Idris Boje from Lokoja, Kogi State. The next one says, Nigeria is a nation of hope. The resilience of Nigerians to put our country in her right place in the Committee of Nations is not negotiable. Happy Independence. This one is coming from Barrister Nwobugo Odo. The next one says, as Nigeria closed 62, much is expected from the citizens in the area of patriotism and also effective service delivery on the part of the government to the people so as to build the nation. This one is coming from Akinola Ololade from Ilorin, Kwara State. Of course, keep sending your messages, and of course we get to share them with the rest of the viewer. Now, during the week, Shike had a chat with Professor Uja, and then he spoke on different issues. So let's quickly take that interview, and after that we still have more guests to join us in the studio.
And I'm opportune to have with me in the studio to talk about some of these issues that we've been reflecting upon. The immediate past president of Nigerian Medical Association, and he is currently the vice chancellor of Federal University of Health Sciences, Otukpo in Benue State. I'm talking about Professor Innocent Uja. Sir, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, and happy independence to Nigerians.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Okay, we are celebrating independence. Nigeria is 62. What do you have to say about this?
Any person that is 62 is an adult, and that means the person has matured and is going into retirement. But as a nation, 62 is a good age, but when you compare it with other countries to the world like the US, we're just starting. But we thank God that we are 62. And so far, well, we can say that we're moving forward, even when we probably would have moved faster.
Okay.
But it's slow and steady.
Okay, you said we are moving forward. We thank God for that. Of course, in many areas of our lives, we are moving forward as a nation. But when we reflect on so many things in Nigeria, when we reflect on education, we reflect on health services, on transportation, and so many other things, we say the good old days. It used to be better than we have now. Why do you think this is so?
Well, there are so many things that we look at. First of all, it couldn't be all bad. When I was a student in the university, there were only 6 universities in this country. Today, there are over 200 universities. Mm-hmm. So who would then say that we have not made any? Mm-hmm. When I was in primary school, there were only 4 regions in this country. Today we have 36 states and FCT. The teaching hospitals in Nigeria today, that's for the federal establishment, is over 52 federal medical centers and university teaching hospitals. So by and large, yes, we are moving forward. But when you say good old days, what was the population then? We have grown geometrically, and it's affecting whatever structure facility that we have, so that many of the facilities are not at pace with the growth of population. So the population is overstretching the facilities we have. But we need to, of course, with planning, we should be able to see where we are going. And that is where the census for next year will probably be very helpful, because we must know how many we are to be able to plan for the future. Okay. Otherwise, we will not get the adequate facilities for development for our people.
Okay, it's good that you mentioned the need for planning to be able to know what the population needs, so that the population will not overstretch the facilities. What exactly do you think the government should do about planning, in the area of planning?
Well, it has been said time and time again, planning is not our problem. We have effective planning in the health system, planning in agriculture, planning in water resources, whatever, planning on roads, construction, and the rest.
Then what
is the implementation.
Okay.
The implementation, I think that we need to reject that, because we are not, the implementation is not as effective as it should have been. And therefore, you find that if you go to many places, I mean, I was in NIPS in 1995, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. If the government or people, private sector governments, want to know anything about this country, they should go to get a paper from NIPS. A lot of research have been done in NIPS, but it is gathering dust. The papers are gathering dust because of the inability to realize that we need these documents to effectively plan. For instance, you know, at one point or the other in the 70s, Nigeria was producing with other partners yellow fever vaccine. Today we don't have any vaccine anymore. We are now talking about vaccine. We shouldn't be talking about vaccine. Nigeria has the capacity to produce vaccines to prevent vaccine preventable diseases, but we don't have that because of ineffective implementation. I was Director General of Nigerian Institute of Medical Research for 6 years. At the time, Nigerian Institute of Medical Research was a research funding agency. Today, there is no organization apart from TEF Fund that funds research in this country. And you cannot develop without research. There's no way you can make way without research. That's why the National Institute of Health of the United States of America, devotes, planned and budgets so much money for research. Apart from TEF Fund that has some plans of which conducting or funding research in the universities, and that's limited. Not in the hospitals, in the educational sector. We believe that the National Research Council should be able, the government should invest heavily in research. It is research that drives development. Whatever we say, whatever we do, without research, it will not. Because we need to, if we plan, you must evaluate, you must monitor, you must evaluate. So you must have data, and data will be the one that will guide the process.
Okay, now let's talk about education sector, of which is your jurisdiction at this moment. Now, would you say Nigeria is doing well, especially in the area of tertiary education, considering the fact that ASU has been on strike for about 7 months now, and students are home? Nothing seriously is happening in the area of education. What do you have to say about this? How will this affect or not affect our development?
Well, unfortunately, that's a dark point on our development. Education is the greatest asset of man. Education is the greatest asset of man. So for our young ones to be out of school for 6-7 months, I will call it a national tragedy. It should not happen at all. And nobody should hear it. It's a big dent on us from both the government and ASU. I was president of NMA. As a president, NAD went on strike. I did everything to make sure that government responded to some of the, and then discussed with us, National Association of Resident Doctors, and they suspended the action. Now, the essence is that strike action is to create awareness. It's not to be destructive. I believe that, and even when they went to court, just like government went to court on National, when they went to court, we decided that that will not stop our negotiation. And we negotiated, and we reached an agreement, and signed an agreement, and ensured that the government implemented most of the agreement. You don't go to war and believe that you will not have casualties. It takes two to make a pair. So if you go on strike, something must give. Something must give. And what we did was that, yes, we may not get everything immediately, but with time, we were able to get most of it, even the withheld salaries. The resident doctors were saying no until they say they will pay. They will not suspend the strike. And I said no. Let us suspend the strike so that we will now have the power of putting pressure on government to pay the withheld salary. What I said then worked. Strike was suspended. I went to do my own constructive engagement, met with people that can influence matters, and the 2 months salaries that were suspended were paid. Not only that they were paid, Juhesu in 2018 went on strike, and until that time, which was last year, those 2 months salaries were withheld. And when they said, okay, if they paid resident doctors, they will have to pay the Juhesu. I say pay them. Pay my people and pay them. And they paid Juhesu. So Juhesu gained from our negotiation. That means that as leaders of health team, I was in command. So it couldn't be that I say, okay, pay NAD, NRD, and don't pay. Yes, it means I'm no longer a leader. What I'm saying, in fact, that yes, government should move forward, ASU should move forward, meet at the middle of the road, and then come to the round table and let the strike be suspended. Any strike that is more than 4 weeks is destructive, particularly in education. And I mean, it pains, because those of us in medicine, we know what our students lose. Okay. You can't, where you can probably lecture, get the history lecture books and rattle through. In medicine, you cannot, because you must do your postings. If you're clinical medicine, you must do your postings. There's nothing that will stop it. They wouldn't say posting of 4 weeks should be 3 weeks or 2 weeks. No, you must do your posting.
Then do you think there can be any kind of remedy to make up for these 7 months?
That's why I've told you that for medicine, that is gone. There's no way anybody can tell the lecturers in medicine that shortening your training. That means you want us to be killing people. That's not what we are trained for.
Okay, let us quickly talk about the health sector now, which is also an area of your jurisdiction.
That's correct.
The brain drain that is happening in the health sector at the moment. What can be done to reverse the trend?
Well, as a president of NMA, I ensured that the first lecture series of the Nigerian Medical Association was on brain drain, and this was in April, specifically 4th of April. And we brainstormed what is happening, what should be done, and we are concerned. You see, this is not the first time brain drain is happening in Nigeria. 1978, when there was this private decree, people left. That was not external, that was internal brain drain. People left the teaching hospitals, lecturers left and established their private clinics. In the 90s, when the pay was very poor, people left for Saudi Arabia, they left for Britain, left for Canada, left for United Kingdom. And then when the MSS under General Babangida, that's medical salary scale, which we prosecuted, and General Babangida restored some level of some funds to for remuneration, people started coming back, and things were getting better. Things were getting better because you must pay. The reason why people had to leave at that time, professors could not repair their vehicles. They couldn't send their children to good school. How can you be a professor and your children are in makeshift schools? I would not want that. If I'm a professor, my children must be properly trained, better trained than me. So they had to go and go like a second-class citizen to Saudi Arabia and do all sorts of this. Of course, they were doing medicine, but the order in which what the respect and honor they commanded in this country could not be the same. They couldn't contribute to any other thing apart from working. So they left, and when situation improved, many of them came back. Others stayed, and sometimes it's good to stay away because it's not possible to have everybody here. But what is happening now is terrible. The young ones are leaving as soon as they finish. House job, house NYSC, they leave. And the beauty of it is that wherever you go to, as far as medicine is concerned, you must do the examination to practice in that place. And our boys and girls live here to Europe and America, England, and they pass this examination without any question. They pass, many of them are first sitting. And what is the reason? They are being properly trained here. They are very well trained here, both clinical and theory. So it is a very bad omen. These days, the consultants are leaving, professors are leaving, young doctors, the resident doctors, they are leaving. And you know that is what we call pull and push factor. The pull factor is that there is better environment in Europe and America.
Definitely.
You get facilities to practice, right? You get better pay. Here, Boko Haram will not allow you. Banditry, kidnappers. So how can you be in your house and be sleeping with your one eye open or closed? That is one area. The remuneration is poor. Work environment is not good. There is interprofessional rivalry where people who are not medical doctors believe that they are doctors. If you are a nurse, you go on, do your work as a nurse. If you are a pharmacist, do your work as a pharmacist. Don't say it is like. If you are a doctor, don't go and do the nurse's work. But there is relationship because there is no system that doesn't have a relationship. Even in the airlines, you have a captain, you have the crew members, the cabin crew members, and they all work together. So the issue of saying this and that you must know the engagement of individuals. Once you are going to a profession, if an engineer, if you are a structural engineer, you are a structural engineer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Oja. I know you have a lot to share with us. Now, it's 62nd anniversary of Nigeria. What is the way forward, especially in these two areas, education and health?
Well, the way forward, the first one, the health, there is a health reform committee set up by Mr. President. If we work well, we should be able to find solutions to many of these with good implementation. The educational one, there is one thing that I do not agree with ASU. I'm a member of ASU, but I don't agree with that. That no school fees should be paid in the university. Education is very expensive. People pay 200,000 for primary school, not even secondary school, per year. You go to a private university, you pay 2-3 million naira, and then you in the federal universities or the public university, you say they should not pay. Why will you run the university? The government alone cannot and will not. I mean this because I've seen it. There's no way the federal government can run the university. And let me tell you, the number of Nigerians who are qualified to go to the university is huge, and the percentage is not more to 30%. So what are we talking about? I believe that for us to have improved facilities, there's no way you can do science without good laboratories. You must have good laboratories because otherwise it's theory of practice.
Yeah.
And that is not correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Investment in education is very important. TEFON is doing that.
Okay.
There should be bursary. There should be loans, just like they do in other places. Because if you are paying fees, those who are disadvantaged should get federal government loans or state government loans.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm already having signals that we are overrunning. I know you have a whole lot to share with us. That's Professor Innocent Uja, who is sharing his thoughts with us on issues of education and health as Nigeria celebrates 62nd independence anniversary. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
The program continues. That is Weekend Deal on NTA Network Service.
Well, that was quite an exciting interview with Professor Uja there. I mean, very critical there. The fact that there is a need for the stakeholders to invest heavily in the education sector, because like we always say, it's very, very important. In fact, it's central to any other sector of the economy in the country.
Yeah, and the health sector is also very critical for the development of the nation. Now, we're still talking about the good old days. Gone are those days when we earned, that is the nation, and a whole lot of its foreign exchange from coal, from cocoa, from the granite pyramid of the north, from tin, from Jos. But those days seem to be stories now. And now we're doing a reflection on those good old days. And now we want to look at what has happened to cocoa industry. Let's take it from NTA Ibadan.
As at the independence of Nigeria in October 1st, 1960, agriculture was the main source of export earnings and public revenue, as it accounted for well over half of the gross domestic product (GDP). Different regions of the countries then were associated with particular cash crops, majorly groundnut, oil palm, rubber and cocoa. The pivotal role played by the agricultural sector in the emergence and development of Nigeria as a nation was so huge. It is on record that cocoa production and export of its produce accounted for not only the industrial growth in the southwestern Nigeria, but also triggered rapid socio-economic development of producing areas.
It's played a very good and vital role during the period of Chief Awolowo. Proceeds from cocoa was used to build a cocoa house, the tallest building then in Africa. Even the NTA, the now NTA, was a product of cocoa. Liberty Stadium was product of cocoa. And the bulk of the economy of the Western region during the period of Chief Awolowo was based on revenue from cocoa.
This thus paved the way for rapid general development of infrastructure, including the famous Cocoa House, WNTV, among others, which earned Oyo State paysetter status.
Nigeria have not been able to reach the potentials that we actually have in terms of the productivity of cocoa. If you compare countries like Cote d'Ivoire, who have less hectarage than Nigeria, they are producing close to 2 million tons of cocoa per year. Nigeria is still struggling around 250,000 to 300,000 metric tons per year. We have larger areas in terms of hectarage that we can use to cultivate more cocoa and increase the production. We also have the potentials of planting new varieties of cocoa that will make sure that we get the yield that we desire.
If we were to remain the way we were then, I believe cocoa would have been the prime mover and other commodities will have followed. And it will have been a very big revenue generation for the whole country. Now we are like number 3 or number 4 in the whole world in cocoa production. Whereas then we are the leader, where others are copying from us. It is quite unfortunate.
The region is now left with stories of the good old days of boom in the agricultural sector following the discovery and overdependence of Nigeria on oil as the main source of revenue. Although there have been efforts in recent times to revive the cocoa industry, the wound left behind by the long years of neglect and abandonment is still very fresh.
The perception of our Nigerian farmers should be changed. And also the commitment of the federal government also should change. You see, in the past, agriculture has been the stay of this economy. But today, because of oil, many people have moved to other areas where they can easily make money. So I think if we want to come back to our past glory, there is need for the farmers' orientation they should be trained.
because most of our farmers today, because of their age, it is affecting them. And I want to still applaud the government, especially for the past few years, that most farmers are now enjoying compared to before. But it is not enough for the government to say that they have tried in agriculture. We should see agriculture as a business. We should see agriculture as what the nation depends on, because you see that there is inflation of dollars. Most of our crops that are coming from other countries is as a result of the scarcity of food here. The reproduction level in Nigeria is too low because many people are drifting. There is drift in agriculture to other sectors, and this is affecting us.
Now that the country is confronted with decline in revenue from oil, coupled with the effect of global economic crisis, it won't be a bad idea for government to give priority to production of cocoa and other cash crops in all parts of the country as part of effort to diversify Nigeria's income generation sources.
Yeah, thank you, Ibadan. We're still talking about our wealth. Now we want to look at coal. What happened to coal? But before then, we'll be going to Enugu to talk about coal. What has happened to coal in the past 62 years?
Nigeria, we hail thee. October 1st every year marks a significant milestone in the history of Nigeria as a country. On this date in 1960, Nigeria witnessed a massive celebration of her independence from the colonial British imperialists, with the perception of a nation destined to play a major role in the Committee of Nations, given the variables of a rich culture, history, population, and natural resources endowment in almost every region of the country. In 1909, distinctive coal was discovered in Udi, local government area here in Enugu State, by a British mine engineer, Abat Kissin. Besides the fact that coal mining exploration generated lots of revenue for the country between 1916 and 1970, it was significantly a major source of energy to the entire southeast.
Coal was used to power the whole industry in Nigeria. It was coal that powered all the whole rails, all the trains that were conveying both the palm produce, both the pyramids, the granite pyramids in Kano, and the cocoa. It was coal that was used to transport all those things to the port so that they can be exported. And coal was very, very vital in the Nigerian economy because it was coal that was used to produce electricity. To generate electricity, there cannot be industrialization without energy.
Sadly, today, the situation is no more as it used to be. Its decline as a major revenue earner was gradual, but rather deteriorated to mere monumental archives.
What stopped mining of coal in Enugu State is not that coal has exhausted, but everything has to do with politics.
Yes.
Because the importance of such solid minerals can never be overemphasized. I know that before the war, that was the mainstay of the economy of the nation.
The consequences of the country delving deeper into huge dependence on crude oil production were far-reaching and harshly telling.
When oil came, everything was abandoned. The granite, the coal, the cocoa and all whatnot. Even people hardly go to farm. Even the river said they do fishing, they don't no longer do fishing. So it's not only coal alone that was abandoned, but how I wish that we can go back to coal.
Over the years, the Nigerian Coal Corporation had tried to revive the industry, but the task yet seemed to be insurmountable.
They can go back to coal, more especially now that technology has brought in electric motor. It will then go into other automobiles. So the use of fuel as an energy is dwindling.
It's about time the government and all stakeholders reformulate policies and strategies to bring about its revampment as a critical sector in the development of the nation's economy.
Thank you for staying with us. And of course, our guest just joined us in the studio. He is the National Coordinator of National Social Investment Program, NSIP, Dr. Umar Buba Binder. You are welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be here.
Happy Independence.
Thank you. I feel great. Happy Independence too.
And I'm sure, you enjoyed your time yesterday watching the parade, at the Eagle Square, listening to the presidential speech, which happens to be his last, 1st October broadcast.
Actually, honestly, I slept off. I read the address after I woke up.
Oh,
and it's excellent.
Interested. Now, the president said a whole lot of things in that address, and then, of course, when the administration came to be in through 2015, there were 3 key issues that they wanted to tackle. We talk about security, we talk about fight against corruption, we talk about fixing the economy, and, fast forward to 2019, we had, alleviation, poverty alleviation. To that mix, it's wrapping up, it's rounding up. How successful have they been?
Well, actually, in the spirit of celebrating 62 years after independence, I take the word celebration very literally. Celebration is not complaining. Celebration is not lamenting. Celebration is really celebration. It's a joyous word. So, reviewing 62 years to start with, as a country, I think we've done very well as far as I'm concerned. The only thing that is a tiny little gap in my assessment is that we're not good at celebrating successes. We succeed and we turn around and knock it down. We succeed. I mean, look, I've said it before.
How do you mean we succeed and turn around and knock it down?
Well, you see, there is hardly any country that just out of the blue decided to establish a new federal capital. England or the United Kingdom tried to establish a place called Milton Keynes. Till today they are trying. That was way behind Nigeria's trial. Australia tried with Canberra, right? Till today they are still struggling. Here comes the great Nigeria. We moved to Abuja, we built it up, we got going, and then we complain about the city is not this. This is a functional city. It's a modern city. It's a success for this great country. 2, look, the fantastic performances that we have done as a united front in sports. We've even won an Olympic medal within this period of time. We've won the African Cup of Nations many, many times. And everybody knows sports is an element of human endeavor that puts people together, young people, unity, and so on and so forth. We got there. Instead of sustaining it and enjoying it, again we fumbled, now we're struggling. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Yeah. Look at universities, proliferation of universities. There's hardly, at least in this continent, that any country has the number of universities we have. We have over 220 or 50 fully functional universities. In fact, private universities only started after when Obasanjo came in 1999. Today we have nearly 80 of them. Look, and where do you get the vibrant young people to propel security and unity, to propel development? It is the massive production of universities, engineers, doctors, everything. And we have it. But yet we turn around and say, oh, we are suffering from insecurity, oh, unemployment. So here we are not good at celebrating successes. And I think we've done a lot of mileages. Without solving poverty problems, you cannot make progress. You remember back in the days, I don't want to take us too far, but we were in the military era. We had MAMSA, we had DIFRI, we had even back then, Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution. All these are poverty alleviation programs. Back to the Abacha time when he had FIP. FIP was a poverty alleviation program. Obasanjo came and we did NAPEP. NAPEP was a poverty alleviation program. President Jonathan came, we had SURE-P. SURE-P was a poverty eradication program. Now, this president realized that very, very strategically and innovatively, reviewing all this, he asked the question, why? Why has poverty remained a problem after investing so much resources, putting all these ideas, and he realized some few things. One, the policy or the direction to solve poverty must be evidence-based. You have to research and look and target critical things that can then snowball into affecting others. And that is why the whole social investment program rallies around young people and also the poor and vulnerable families. These are the two core elements of absolute poverty. Secondly, he realized that if you continue coming up with a program because you are a caring administration, keeping the program in the presidency, each time a government drops off, it drops off with its own program. He now decided to institutionalize the fight against poverty. And that is how he established the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs as the core coordinating ministry that coordinates all aspects of poverty. And ministries don't die easily. Yes, they may transform and change and probably break into 2 or 3, but they hardly die. And that is his accolade on this. 3, he realized that actually most of the programs that have been reeled out have always been men running it. And men are not as good, in my opinion. I mean, I was part of many of them, as good in fighting poverty. He chose a woman with experience, a younger woman, who is committed, and he appointed her as the minister. That again is an ingredient for actually making progress. And then that NSIP, the Social Investment Program that was being implemented in the presidency, in the office of His Excellency the Vice President, he brought it into the ministry. So here we have a 3 or 4 pronged strategy that consolidated the fight against poverty. Zooming onto the NSIP, NSIP has 4 clusters. And as I said before, it focuses on young people based on research and also families, poor and vulnerable families. Young people, because if you look at what is happening, the pool of young people that we are coughing into the economy is beyond what you can think of. Every ill in this country has something to do with young people. When you look at IPOP, it's young people. When you look at all the video clips you get on kidnapping, it's young people.
And I also know that, there are a whole lot of things that bind us. You talk about sport, you talk about music, but let's join NA to talk to us more about the things that bind us together as a nation.
The journey to success has so many twists, turns, and ups and downs. No matter how long the journey takes, how it ends is the pointer. Nigeria is now 62. Suffice to say, much is still left to be done, though in all of this, the nation is still standing strong in spite of contrary opinions of impending doom, national catastrophe, and disintegration.
These perspectives have been fueled by individual opinions, feeling that the challenges we deal with as a country is by virtue of some forced amalgamation, but that is not the case. The problem here is the founding fathers had their intention behind the amalgamation. Even though there are theories as regards whether it was a business decision, whether it was for unity as a factor or whatever, the thing is Nigeria exists now as a country encompassing all of these regions. But I feel why it is more prevalent now is because the voices of the people are beginning to come out more often.
As people often say, Nigeria is a nation of peculiar people who will never give up no matter what. In spite of glaring challenges, Nigeria is one African nation that has carved a niche and gained respect for herself in the world of music, sports, medicine, technology, and interestingly, in the area of culture.
Whenever Nigeria had a game, whether in the AFCON or in the Olympics or in the World Cup, when we still were qualifying for the World Cup, you could literally see a viewing center with people from different cultures, people from different regions coming together. That in itself goes back to my initial point of saying, when such activities happen, nobody's looking for individuality. Where is Nigeria winning? Nobody's saying is the player from Niger State the one that is going to score. I don't know if you get what I mean. So we had a confluence point for that. And the same thing can be said for the entertainment sector. When you look at the entire achievements we're making as a country globally,
Nobody is saying so and so movie was nominated for an Oscar or was presented even for consideration because it was a northern film or because it was a southern movie. It's a Nigerian movie made the consideration list. And the same was celebrated when we won our Grammys. The same was celebrated when we had, the little wins we had in the Olympics, down to our bronze medals and the rest.
You see a northern man wear the Jonathan dress with his cap, and when he comes out, you will not even know that he's from the north. You see the southwest person come out to dress in that attire, you will not even believe that he's from the southwest. Now, for food, the entire Nigeria knows about akara. The northern person eats akara and cocoa. Somebody from the southeast eats the same thing. Somebody from the west, they eat the same thing. So the unifying thing is food, and it has played a major role.
This indeed have formed the basis of what makes us strong as a nation, and they remain the unifying factors in our national coexistence. No doubt, when Nigeria finds herself on the international stage, at that moment, tribe, ethnicity, religion matter less. But the green, white, green matters most. Nigeria becomes first above all. What else could be more patriotic and self-giving than that?
I think the diasporans, they carry it more on their shoulder. They believe it is their responsibility to make sure that Nigerian flag is being flown high outside the country. So I believe we in Nigeria, we should do the same. We are going to be 62 and it's not easy. We have to work towards making things work right and achieving a better Nigeria for everyone to live in.
We are who we are. Proud, bold, strong, beautiful, resilient, and will-spirited. For as long as Nigeria remains undivided, in one accord, and weathering all manner of storms, the nation remains unstoppable and formidable. The last lines of the last stanza of the Nigerian national anthem says it all. With lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice reign.
We are who we are. I really like that as Nigerians. Very resilient, bold, and dogged people. So, sir, you saw that report. And you said some things about our sports, our entertainment, music, and the need to celebrate those things. Your last words to Nigerians as we celebrate 62nd anniversary, please, very quickly.
I think we should be very, very proud of our great country. We should be very, very proud by our leaders. I think President Buhari has tried, and I think we should sustain some of the things. Sustain the social investment program. Sustain the fight against poverty. Sustain the fight against corruption. Sustain the work to actually evolve peace and unity. I think we have a chance. And the young people, try to think you have another 70 years to go. Don't waste your 70 years. You have a great country. I wish us all the very best. Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bendry, for speaking to us this morning. It's always a pleasure. This is where we wrap it up here in the studio.
Let's Nigeria. Happy Independence Anniversary.